can't see it, but
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And Rokim Habayim. I'd like to welcome all of you to evening Shabbat services at Or Hadash. I've met so many of you. I am Rabbi Lynne Goldsmith, and I want to thank you very, very much for the opportunity for my husband Rob, who's right here somewhere. Oh, back there. And I to share this Shabbat weekend with your congregation. We're very, very pleased to be here. I like to begin Shabbat services by giving everybody a thought to ponder, maybe as your mind wanders when the sermon gets boring. Just kidding. Or even later in the week when you find yourself thinking back on this weekend. One of my very favorite rabbis is Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. I want his title someday. Who was the chief rabbi in England for many, many years, and he is a brilliant writer and essayist. One of his teachings that I love and I repeat over and over again is that we are all created in the image of God, and yet each one of us is unique. And that we should strive to find God's image in everybody, especially in someone who is not like us. This week, Rabbi Sacks wrote a column about the Torah portion of the book, which is Vayera. He was commenting on the hospitality that Abraham afforded the three strangers who showed up at his tent while he was recovering from his self-inflicted circumcision. Rabbi Sacks said this, that the idolaters of Abraham's time worshiped the sun, the stars, and the forces of nature as gods. They worshiped power and the powerful. Abraham knew, however, that God is not in nature, but he is beyond nature. There's only one thing in the universe on which God has set his image, the human person. Every person, powerful and powerless alike. The forces of nature are impersonal, which is why those who worship them eventually lose their humanity. Abraham, father of monotheism, knew the paradoxical truth that to live the life of faith is to see the face of God in the face of a stranger. It's easy to receive the divine presence when God appears as God. What is difficult is to sense the divine presence when it comes disguised as three anonymous passersby. That was Abraham's greatness. He knew that by serving God and offering hospitality to strangers were not two things, but one. We all honor God by honoring his image, humankind. So if we could all strive, all of us, strive to see that trace of God in the face of a stranger or someone not like us, we wouldn't only be able to help create a world that's not in a constant state of animosity, as it seems to be these days, but we would also be honoring God and all of God's creations at the same time. And I don't think it gets much better than that. So with that, I would like to invite up Norm and Sheila Cohen, who are celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary, which is amazing. And also Gerald Weiss, who was a founding member of the congregation. They will be lighting our Shabbat candles, and our worship begins on page 120. By the way, I am using a Shabbat prayer book, so if I give you the wrong page, just kind of look at me funny, and I'll get the right one. I have both pages written down.
Anybody here in the book group? We're all going to do the blessing together.
Sounds like a good idea.
Sure. If you're in the book group, come on up.
There's going to be more people up here. Oh my God. I'm going to get out of the way.
We have an active book group.
Who's going to actually let them?
Norman or Sheila and Gerald.
All right.
Gerald is one of our founders.
Yes. It's so difficult.
who's left? Just us? Well, thank you all. Oh, close it up, please. Yeah. Today they're going to stay lit. We have these trick Shabbat.
Nice job.
Nice.
All right.
Cool. Okay.
Asher Kishanu Mitzvotav, V'Tivanu La'avli Ner Shel Shabbat. Amen. Amen. Thank you all very, very much. And I'll thank you all later for the opening. And we turn now to page 124. Okay, page 124. Reading at the bottom of the page, we'll read it responsively. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May they welcome all who have cares for the burden, anxious to express, and hopes to nurture.
May the door of the synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold use a stumbling block to guide those astray feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be for all who enter, the doorway to literature and meaningful life.
Amen. And please turn to page 129, and we will join Natalie in singing Do Dee Lee. And she said you know a very nice melody. Do Dee Lee, Ba'ani Lo Hara Ba'ashani. Do Dee Lee, Ba'ani Lo Hara Ba'ashani. Mi Zama, Mi Haribar, Mi Haribar, Mi Kusharabar, Ulevana, Ulevana. Da'ili, Ba'ani Lo Hara Ba'ashani. Da'ili, Ba'ani Lo Hara Ba'ashani. Ni Batini, Ahoticha, Ahoticha. Uritzavam, Uvoriteman, Uvoriteman. Da'ili, Ba'ani Lo Hara Ba'ashani. Da'ili, Ba'ani Lo Hara Ba'ashani. And now we'll turn please to page 132. And we'll look at Psalm 96, which is at the top of the page. Sing to Adonai a new song. Sing to Adonai all the earth. Sing to Adonai, bless God's name. Proclaim God's victory day after day. Tell of God's glory among the nations, God's wondrous deeds among all peoples. For Adonai is great and much acclaimed. God is held in awe by all divine beings. All the gods of the people are mere idols, but Adonai made the heavens. Glory and majesty are before God. Strength and splendor are in God's temple. And together,
Let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. The fields and everything in them exult. Then shall all the trees of the forest shout for joy at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and his people in faithfulness.
and then please turn to page 138. And we'll sing L'chadodi together. We sing verses, actually Natalie told me this, I don't know this for sure, but we sing verses 1 and 2 and 8 and 9.
That sounds good.
L'chadodi atala, hanei Shabbat nikavela. L'chadodi atala, hanei Shabbat nikavela. Shachor v'zachor v'tivorecha, Yishmi'anu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, U'shmo echad, V'shemo
Shabbat nekavela, yamin usmol tifrotzi, v'yet Adonai taritzi, al yadish en partzi, v'nishalcha v'nagila, lecha yodi v'krat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela, lecha yodi v'krat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela. Baruch Shalom, Ater and Bala, Ha'apesim ha'u'zachala, Chovemune, Amzerula, Baruch Allah, Baruch Allah, Lecha Dodi, V'krat Kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela, Lecha Dodi, V'krat Kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela.
And then we'll turn the page, please. And at the bottom of page 140, a song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai! How very subtle your designs! A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. Together,
The righteous move like a cave palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in the courts of our God. In old age they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness. Attesting that Adonai is upright, my God, in whom there is no wrong.
and then if you'll turn the page, we'll sing Shalom Aleichem together.
Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom, Aleichem. Mi'inelech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Aleichem Shalom, Aleichem Shalom, Aleichem Yom. Mi'inelech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Yom. Mi'inelech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Say Shabbat Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Yom. Mi'inelech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And then we'll turn the page for the Chatzi Kaddish. By the way, you guys sing great. It is so nice to hear so many people singing along. You've done a great job.
When we first began, people sat a long time ago. People sat, and now everybody really sings. It's a wonderful
The
thing.
transliteration helps.
Oh yes, there is that really helps. Vizkadash Shamei Rabamei Yamadi Rakibute V'Yavdik Mokutei V'Chaye Cholu Yomecha V'Chayetecho Beit Yisrael Arava U'Bizman Karim B'Meru Ha'ei Yehei Shnei Rabba Me'ora Ya'alom Me'amaya Yitzparach Yitzparach Yishtabach Yitzpar Yishramam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitzadar V'Yitzadeh
Last girl, please rise. And on page 148, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'baroma ariv aravi. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opening the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the season, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are the creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzibaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari Aravi. Then the next page.
Page 150.
Abba Torah, Beis Yisrael, Ahata, Torah mitzvot, Chukim mishpatim, Otanu v'limadeta, Akein Adonai Eloheinu, V'shafeinu v'kuleinu, Nasiach v'fukacha, v'nismach v'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hein chayenu, v'yorech yameinu, v'yorech yameinu, u'lahem neged, yomam ha'layla, yomam ha'layla. Si'ahav tasir, imenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
The next page.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. And we're at the top of page 154, and we'll chant the V'ahavta together.
V'ahavta Adonai Elohecha, b'chol lecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha, v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi tzitzavecha hayom alevavlecha v'shinata ha'adonecha v'divarta bam v'shitecha b'beitecha u'v'letecha b'terech u'shoflecha u'b'kumecha u'ksharta me'od al yadecha v'hayu mezuzot bein einecha u'ktatam al mezuzot beitecha u'b'yisharecha.
And then we read at the top of page 155 together. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act.
Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the door your house
or outside your gates. They are reminders to do all the mighty souls, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. And if you turn to page 157 of the next page, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe that we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. So we turn the page and sing with Mocha. Lai, 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 Adonai et Yaakov, v'golo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. And thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Okay, return the page. And at the top of page 43, we read together. I'm sorry, 161. That's the Shabbat version. At the top of page 161. Together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'poretz sukat shalom aleinu v'kol amo Yisrael al Yerushalayim. And then the top of page 162, again we'll join Natalie in singing the Shabbat. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha'shabbat Lasot et ha'shabbat L'dorot ha'berit olam V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha'shabbat Lasot et ha'shabbat L'dorot ha'berit olam V'nirem b'nei Yisrael Oti le'olam Oti le'olam V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha'shabbat Lasot et ha'shabbat L'dorot ha'berit olam Ki she'edomim asa Adonai et ha'shamayim v'et ha'aretz V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha'shabbat Lasot et ha'shabbat L'dorot ha'berit olam Le'anoshim Shabbat v'yavash Shabbat v'yavash Shabbat v'yavash that since I was in HUC. It's been a long time. We're about to enter into the heart of our prayer service, the Amidah. My understanding that it is your minhag, your custom, to pray through the first three blessings of the Amidah and then pray silently through page 181. Correct? Good. So I'll ask you all to please rise. And we're on page 164. 164. Adonai, Sematatitam, Uvia, Itani, Matecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Elohim Eloheinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor, HaHarara, Elohim, Hamel Chasadim Torim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher HaZeavot V'Imachot, U'Mevi Gulavim V'Nei Hanem, V'Man Shemo V'Yahava, Melech Ozeru Mashiach Magen, Baruch Adonai, Magen Avraham, Yezras Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, V'Chayei HaKol Atzarach HaMoshiach, Hashimah Ulovim HaGashem, V'Chavel Chaim V'Chesed, V'Chayei HaKol V'Rachamim Rabim, Somen Rolim V'Ropeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Uchayei Emunatah, L'Shei Be'afar, Michamalo Halal V'Urot, Umitam V'Elach, V'Elech V'Mid, Uchayei, Umashiach Yeshua, V'Neman Atah V'Hayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, V'Chayei HaKol. Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Doshim B'chol Yom Yachadu V'Chaseva, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Page 180. Oh, say shalom, shalom v'brova, yaseh shalom. Oh, say shalom, shalom v'brova, yaseh shalom. So I spent a lot of years being a congregant and listening to sermons. And I agree with George Bernard Shaw, who said that a sermon should have a good beginning, a good ending, and preferably as close together as possible. So I do try to keep my sermon short. So my sermon is entitled, Certainty is Overrated. So how many senses do we have? 5, right? Smell, touch, taste, seeing, and feeling, right? Well, I learned that this isn't true. Not true? Does this mean I flunked that science test I took in the 3rd grade? Actually, scientists believe that there are around 20 senses, including balance, pain, movement, hunger, thirst, itch, pressure, and the ability to ascertain temperature. We can even detect magnetic fields. Who knew? There are so many things that we learn as facts that are later disproven. Pluto is no longer a planet. One less for the school children to have to memorize for that science test that I flunked. Anyway, as young parents, we learned that our baby should be on its stomach when he or she was asleep so they wouldn't choke to death. Today, my granddaughter is put to sleep on her back. Margarine, I love this one. Margarine was touted as a healthy alternative to butter. But now studies have shown that butter is actually better for you than margarine. Yes. And coffee. Don't get me started. In my lifetime, coffee has either been a super healthy beverage or incredibly harmful. Today, right now, it's thought to have all kinds of health benefits, including being a powerful antioxidant, but it's also recognized that some people may not be able to tolerate the stimulant effects. And most people who drink coffee regularly suffer withdrawal symptoms if we quit cold turkey. So because of all of these contradictory studies, I refuse to read anything about chocolate, and assume that my consumption of it falls into the moderate category, no matter what. So we human beings, we like certainty, which makes sense. If life didn't have some predictability, we would not be able to function. We need to be able to trust certain sources or purveyors of truth. And yet, the older we get, the more it seems that even the most rock-hard truths are being challenged. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me one bit to find out that the earth doesn't actually revolve around the sun. So when I teach Judaism to non-Jews, I always start by explaining that triangle, God, Torah, and Israel. The most important part of the triangle, of course, is God, who gave us the Torah, the land of Israel, and also the identity of being among the people of Israel. So I teach that God is one, and only one, and that God is totally unknowable. Further, each of us forms our own unique relationship with God, and we relate to God in our own uniqueness. I've often said that we Jews don't talk about God often. In fact, one of my recent High Holiday sermons dealt with our discomfort with spontaneous prayer. Yet, I had had congregants tell me so wistfully that they wish they had the kind of relationship with God that their fundamentalist friends seem to have. Their fundamentalist friends profess that God is always close to them, that God is their friend who they can lean on to ask forgiveness or help or to thank for all the good that they know. I tend to be a little leery of this certainty, and I have to wonder if these people have ever had some really hard bumps in life. A rabbinical student wrote a blog post recently about his changing beliefs in God. He was traveling with another student in an airplane, and during the course of their flight, they were discussing how their clinical pastoral education had challenged and strengthened their beliefs. The pilot announced that the plane was about to descend, but just then the plane plummeted towards the earth below. The rabbinical student said he was really, really scared, and his buddy grabbed his hand and said, "Andy, it's okay, God is with you." And Andy replied, "I know that, but we're going to die." So Andy said at that moment he realized that his view of God had begun to mature. Andy, of course, did not die. He did write the blog. But he arrived at a much more mature idea of what God would be for him. And I did wonder if those fundamentalists who profess that God is always with them would be calm and accepting as that plane plummeted towards earth. We receive our name Israel after Jacob wrestled alone with an unknown being all night long. The name Yisrael, one who wrestles with God, is a name that we bear proudly. I'm willing to bet, and I never bet unless I'm sure I'm right, that the most devout person, the one who proudly proclaims that they've never doubted God, is either not telling the truth or they're deluding themselves. We Jews are not only allowed to question God, our very name reveals that we are allowed to question the very existence of God. Do you need some water? You okay? I haven't brought them yet. Yeah, none of my spit's in there yet. Okay, so let's see. I said that we Jews, this is very important. We Jews are not only allowed to question God, but our very name reveals that we are allowed to question the very existence of God. I really don't think there's a person alive who has not doubted God at one time or another in their lives. And yet most people, at their very lowest points in life, when they doubt that God exists at all, are not ready to throw God away and say, I give up, I don't believe there's a God, and I plan on living the rest of my life that way. We still go on striving and wrestling. A Reformed Rabbi, Doug Shapiro, did a survey of his congregants about their God beliefs and was not surprised that a majority of them did believe in God, but was surprised that a sizable majority wondered about God's role in the world given injustice and the fact that there is so much suffering in our world. Many were unsure of God's power. If God is so all-powerful, why is there so much suffering? Most said that they felt a distance from God when a natural disaster occurred or when a close friend or relative died. As I've said, we human beings like hard facts, and we like to think we're in control of our lives. And a part of that control concerns God, who cannot be controlled. I really like what Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said. He said, in the confinement of our study rooms, our knowledge seems to us a pillar of light. But we stand at the door, which opens out to the infinite. We realize that all concepts are but glittering motes that populate a sunbeam. Although he said it really elegantly, what Rabbi Heschel is saying is that we think we understand so much, but only when we look outside the realm of what we know do we realize how much we don't know and how much we will never know. I've only seen the Northern Lights once. They were incredible, and that is a really lame description of the beauty and wonder of that colored light. One of the people who was with me, a very, very cynical man, I might add, looked at me and said, kind of puts you in your place, doesn't it? So I think my cynical friend was expressing that total sense of overwhelming awe that tells us that there exists something that is a whole lot bigger than we are. That this is the type of awe that Rabbi Heschel calls radical amazement. It may occur when we observe a wonder of nature, like the Northern Lights, or a baby being born, or when we experience love, or when we discover something brand new and that light goes off in our head. These afford us a glimpse of the divine, a glimpse of God, and all of us, no matter how much we doubt, look and yearn for those awe-inspiring glimpses. Or, as Rabbi Heschel says, in every person's life there are moments when there is a lifting of the veil at the horizon of the known, opening a sight of the eternal. In our love for the concrete and certainty, we sometimes close ourselves off from these glimpses of the divine, or worse, ignore them altogether. I really hope that all of us remain open to that lifting of the veil so we can experience the glimpse of the presence of God. Katie, you got some. Now, let's see what's next. Next, we'd like to take a moment to remember those of us who are either in our community, our friends, our families, those to whom we're particularly close, who may not be feeling well tonight, either in body, mind, or spirit. If you want to say that person's or persons' names out loud, you can do so when my eyes meet yours, or if you don't want to and you'd rather just hold them in your heart, that would be fine too. So I'll start over here.
Esther, Ruth, Mayor, Ben Ruffle. Fred Freeman. Linda Feldman and Andrew Feldman. Judy Jones.
Graham McCleary.
Phyllis Schugel. Alfred Rosenblatt.
Okay.
Aldana Amber.
Marcy,
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, you. I'm sorry.
No, he said my name and I said thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Our missionary prayer is found on page 371 in the middle of the page. Mishavero Avotenu Nekol HaBracha
comes before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishabetemra imotenu mekor habracha navotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And may God grant them a complete and speedy healing. Amen. And now, according to what I've been told, we recognize those who have birthdays and anniversaries in the month of October. If you are present tonight when I call your name, I'm going to ask you to please stand. Willie and Marge Portilla, Frank and Judy Deming,
Let's just do this.
I know Norman and Sheila Cohen are here. Matt and Simone Dickstein, Carol Schoenbrum, and Mike and Pat Harris. And then we have those. Okay. Yeah, right. The virtual husband. And for birthdays, we have Lauren Reisfeld, Laurel Dickstein, must be related to Matt and Simone, Mitchell Blatt, Michelle Baker, Judy Garber, and Lois Fink. Hi, Lois. What I'd like to do for all of you, first of all, Mazel Tov, especially to the Cohens for 65 years of wedded bliss. That is just absolutely awesome. It's a wonderful milestone. Does that mean that your marriage is eligible for Medicare now?
It's a very special program that most people don't.
What I'd like to do is ask God's blessing upon all of you. As we know, no man can bless another, but we can ask that God bless all of you with the ancient words that are written in our Torah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and keep you. Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha, may God lift up his face upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem l'cha shalom, may God lift up his countenance upon you and give you everlasting peace. And
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'hiyanu l'zman hazeh.
thank you. And next we have announcements. And Brooke, did we give any announcements?
Judy, get you a chair.
Awesome. I'm used to standing.
So we'll be quick. Thank you for coming up. I'm glad the weather was convenient. I was worried the weather was going to change on us. Awesome.
We live in Colorado.
Scheduled for this weekend. So tomorrow morning will be Torah study at 10 at Rivendell. And then there's a Havdalah for members. If you're not a member and you're wanting to come, just let Carol Roberts know. But she has to know tonight. And then... losing my train of thought. Sunday morning we'll have chat back at Rivendell at 10:30. There is no religious school or Orkaton this weekend. And then our next services will be when Rabbi Scott is here again. Any other announcements that I'm missing? Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I would like to thank everybody who brought food, cards, love, and help recently to my home when my husband died. And I don't think I can send out individual notes because I did not have the presence of thought to write down who brought what. So thank you one and all.
Okay, we'll now turn to page 586 and we'll rise for the Elenu.
Aleinu l'shabeach Adon Hakom,
589. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all, created in your image, become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Adonai our God, how soon we hope to behold the perfection of our world, guided by a sacred covenant drawn from human and divine leading. And we'll turn to page 591. And now we come to that time of the service and remember those who are no longer with us, but who made an impression on our lives. A man I had known since I was 4 years old died last week at the age of 92. He and his late wife had no children, and he literally had no family left at the time of his death. At his request, no memorial service was held. I wonder if he thought that no one would mourn or remember him. I remember his and his wife's kindness and acceptance of the little kids who would periodically appear at their door. They would listen patiently to what we had to say, speak with us, and then send us off with a cookie. And then they were there to babysit when my dad had a medical crisis, and my mom needed to be with him at the hospital. He was the one who helped my dad until 3 a.m. one Christmas Eve putting a bicycle together. He worked at a downtown department store and played Santa Claus there during the Christmas season. I never told him I recognized him because of his distinctive watch. So I remember him fondly, and he and his wife taught me how to be good neighbors. He's someone I'll never forget. We never know who we affect in our lives or how we do it. And maybe the consciousness that we do affect those around us should give us both pause, and also comfort. Tonight, yard sites for October of 2018. Alice Goulet, Norma Goldberg, Ruth Seidman, Abe Leff, Edwin A. Wolf Jr., Vivian Goulet, Martin Reisfeld, Wendy Bernstein, Madeline Abels, Howard Fisher, Karen Goldberg-Dinkin, Herman Kaplan, Morris Koppelman, Ruth E. Scher, Jerome Levine, Curtis Karaker, Arthur Agris, Evelyn Goodole, Betty Cohen, Francis Slivkin, Robert Slivkin, David Russ, Barbara Slivkin-Rich, Mary Mirren Kaplan, Theodore Goldberg. And for the past 11 months we remember Donna Sadler, Joel Stein, Alfred Alberts, Mickey Luxembourg, Jeff Bargman, Mike Jones, Wendy Bernstein, Fred Bader, Dolores Grabish, and Betty Rowich. Are there any other names are there any other people we need to remember tonight?
Rusty Johnson.
I'll ask you all to please turn to page 598, and if it is your custom, please stand for the morning's Kaddish. Yitzhak, Yitzhak, Shemei Rabba, Yamam, Yibrach, Yutei, Yamlik, Machzutei, V'chayachon, V'menechon, V'chayei, Kol Beis Yisrael, V'adolah, V'bishman Kari, Yibru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba, Levorach, Le'alon, Olei, Amaya. Yitzhak, Yishabach, Yitzhar, Yitzhaman, Yitzhaseh. Yitzhadar, Yitzhalei, Yitzhalal, Shnei Kusham, Reku. La'elo, Mikol, Rekata, V'shiata. Tushakata, Menemata. Ta'aviram, V'yamav, Yibru, Amen. Yehei Shlomo, Rabba, Shemaya. V'chayim, Aleinu, V'yambo, Israel, Yibru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'yamav. U'yaseh Shalom. Aleinu Yaakov Yisrael, V'Yimru Olam Amen. Zikronam Livracha, and may their memories be for a blessing. As we close our service, I would like to, you can only see it, sorry. As we close our service, I'd like to thank the book group who made all the foods that we'll be enjoying in just a couple of minutes. And I think it is your custom to do the kiddush and the motzi before we start to eat. So I guess everybody should head back there as quickly as possible. Our closing hymn tonight will be Esa Einai. It's at page 643 at the top of the page. Esa Einai, El Naharim, Me'ayin, Me'ayin, Yavo Esri, Esa Einai, El Naharim, Me'ayin, Me'ayin, Yavo Esri, Esri, Me'im Adonai, Osei, Shamayim Haaretz, Esri, Me'im Adonai, Osei, Shamayim Haaretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, from where does my help come? I lift up my eyes up to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from the one maker of the heavens and earth. My help comes from the one maker of the heavens and earth. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Oh, thank you.